So for today's episode, we have our first video interview of 2024. We're going to be interviewing Rick Aguirre Jr. or Ricardo Aguirre Jr. for his documentary Thrilla. And Bronx Independent Cinema Center did screen it in November in our incubator space at CUNY on the Concourse, Lehman College, right off Fordham Road and Grand Concourse. So really excited for you all to check out this interview and enjoy the conversation. Definitely keep up the conversation in the comments. Thank you.
Born and raised in the Bronx, Ricardo attended PS 31 and graduated from Mount St. Michael Academy, 2001. He grew up playing sports and received and accepted a football scholarship from Mercyhurst College, now Mercyhurst University, where he received a bachelor degree in liberal arts with a minor in English, class of 2005.
Ricardo's college football career was cut short due to an accumulation of concussions, so he began to focus on creative writing and the arts. After working various jobs for several years after undergrad, he applied to the MFA program at the City College of New York, where Ricardo graduated with a master's degree in documentary filmmaking, 2014.
Thrilla is Ricardo's first attempt at making a feature-length documentary where he and his colleague, CEO of Digital Bodega, Ismael Vasquez, followed Mike Davila and Adam Colorile during the COVID-19 pandemic as they prepared for two major jiu-jitsu competitions.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast, Ricardo Aguirre Jr.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
So today we're here to discuss your film Thrilla, which was screened by the BICC in November.
Right.
As we mentioned, you're a native of the Bronx. So if you want to just speak a little about your connection to the Bronx, your filmmaking.
Yeah, so I was born in Lincoln Hospital.
Okay.
And we lived across the street in Michelangelo's apartments. And my dad was a housing cop at the time.
Oh, wow.
And my mom was working at Segundo Reese Belvis on St. Anne's, right across the street from the St. Anne's Park. Yeah, I grew up in the Bronx. We started out in the South Bronx, and my dad bought his parents' house in Castle Hill.
That's awesome.
About like when I was like kindergarten age.
Okay.
And then we moved up there. We stayed there until I graduated high school, and then from there I went to Erie, Pennsylvania for undergrad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
What was it like there?
Nice.
a lot of snow.
Yeah.
A lot of snow.
Nothing to do.
and a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you mentioned a lot of snow.
Yeah,
right now.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got to stay warm up there. But it was
Whiskey helps.
a lot. Yeah,
That's an interesting combo. You got the snow and the drinking. It's like just to warm you up.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where I learned how to drink. You know, but I hope I hope none of my professors.
Yeah.
Well, so that's what you got out of it.
Ricardo, how could you?
But yeah, so like I went up there. I was on a football scholarship. I was playing. I played for 3 years, and
Can we get a player comp?
Man, I can't, because you know it was pretty rough. It was pretty, like, you know, getting acclimated, you know, to the game, and I was also very good in track and field.
Okay.
So, and I
Nice.
really and you know, the concussions thing, it started out when I was a kid, and then
Oh, wow.
into high school I had 3 more concussions.
Jeez.
And, you know, it was just at that
That's crazy.
At that point, I was feeling like, all right, this is done for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to focus on running track. And my high school team, took 4th place in nationals in the 4x4.
Holy crap.
So it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't get hit on the track.
Right,
no,
right.
definitely, yeah.
But, you know, my dad talked me into taking the football scholarship. And it was like, you know, it was with a lot of apprehension, and but once I started to get my feet wet and like, okay, then they moved me from defensive back to running back, and I was a backup. So it's like, okay, cool. There's really no pressure.
Right.
Really,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just get on the field, do your, and then at the end of the day, you just want to get on the field.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And
And
you
then-
get a few touches a game, and you're not.
Yeah. And then right before the season started, I got two more concussions. And, and it just really started to affect me in the classroom.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
How many in total at that point?
7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's
7 concussions.
That's a lot.
2 being a kid
yeah.
and 5 playing football.
And how old were you at this point? Like 18, 19?
So the last concussions that I had, I was 20.
Wow.
The last
right.
2.
Wow.
That was,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And is that when you started getting into film and kind of the
And then to tie it back to
Yeah.
the Bronx, when I went to PS31, there was a heavy a heavy investment in the arts, right? So monthly recitals and
Oh wow, that's awesome.
That's
awesome.
putting on performances, whether it's like singing or being a part of the band or some dances.
Yeah.
And then the after school program that I went to at Betanzas also on St. Anne's, there was a dance instructor there that taught you tap,
Oh, wow.
and early school hip hop dance.
That's awesome.
That's a great transition from athletics to the arts.
Yeah.
Something that's physical.
Because you spend basically all your childhood playing outside, being
Yeah.
on teams, and then all of a sudden it stops.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
And your physiology is like you got to do something.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I was dating someone in the dance department at Mercyhurst, and then one of her friends got me in touch with their jazz instructor, who also ran an after-school dance program in Erie.
Okay.
Right, and he recruited me to do a swing number and a hip hop number. Right, just natural transition, football, swing dance.
It's like an episode of Glee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the jock that comes on
exactly.
there. And then the next year, he hired me to be his hip hop dance instructor.
Wow. Okay. So you had some moves.
Yeah, I mean, had moves.
Wow. I'm sure that helped on the football field with the footwork, though.
Listen, footwork is technique is probably the most important thing outside of strength and speed and stuff.
Of course. That actually ties really into the film, I think, in terms of meshing that creativity and sport. I mean, jiu-jitsu in general. I heard a lot in the documentary, people talking it as an art form, almost more than an athletic feat. So I wonder if you could speak a bit about that and how you came to the idea of this project.
So I'll start from I'll start from the end. So Mike Davila and I have been friends since high school.
I was gonna. I noticed the Mount St. Michael in the dock, so I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Were you guys teammates?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're basically. Greg went to Hayes.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you guys have known each other for a while.
No, we don't know each other. It's just that rivalry.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So yeah, no, we've been friends since freshman year in high school.
Wow.
And we're basically brothers, right?
Wow.
And so when he got into jiu-jitsu, obviously my sports career was already over by like 10 years probably. And, it was something for him. And obviously in the film, he talks about how he was kind of aimless after college, and he was getting himself into some trouble. But it was like, when he found jiu-jitsu, I knew as a friend that okay, because I know this guy.
He's good,
He needed something to
Right.
just to focus on, and that was it. And it was perfect for him, especially for a person like him, that it's a very cerebral martial arts.
Seems like a very introspective dude.
It's more like it at least appeared in like the doc more defense than offense.
Yes. You know, the line. I got comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is like absolutely perfect line, not just in jiu-jitsu but in life, right? And so when he during the pandemic, when they had to close down Legends, when he was invited from Eddie Bravo to compete, he just asked me. He's like, "Hey, look, I need some help getting some footage together so I could send them." And usually pre-pandemic, Eddie would have, the production team would have somebody in the area, like the tri-state area,
right? Okay.
To go to you to get the footage, right? So they're worrying about one person, but you couldn't do that during the pandemic, so everybody had to do their own work,
right?
And he had to go through like a questionnaire. He had to answer questions on camera, and we had to follow him for a couple of days. And so after I think like day 2, I was thinking, well, why don't we just follow you, right? And he was thinking the same thing. So I ran it by Izzy, and I didn't even have to finish the question. He was like, why don't, what do you think if we just follow? He was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Like, all right, cool.
Hell
right.
yeah.
So everybody's on board. Let's go get it, right? And I knew, and at that point, we really didn't think of it as being a feature. It was just basically just to get out the house, right? Because we were in lockdown. We weren't doing any. All of our work had to stop.
Yeah.
And then even then, the pandemic really altered the trajectory of a lot of our work.
Yeah, I was curious because, of course, Legends had to be closed down during COVID, but also what major challenges would you have to face because of COVID if they were super major?
Right. I mean, not get caught.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can imagine.
Don't get caught doing, because I mean, and then be hopeful nobody snitches on you.
Right.
What would like a fine or a penalty be at that time? Because I don't even remember.
I know. I think it was it would be like a couple $1,000.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
On the business, but luckily, Legends is in Briarcliff.
Yeah.
And so
right up in Westchester.
Yeah, so it's a little
you had a little more space.
Nobody's really paroling,
right.
And then where it's situated, it's like in the on the backside of a parking lot.
Oh,
so you really have to go and look for it. You really have to go out of your way to find it.
That's perfect.
It wasn't like a storefront on Third Avenue.
Right.
You had your own little filming compound.
Right. Yeah. And then, it's a quiet place anyways, so it was, there was no attention that was brought to them. So, and then, obviously there really wasn't a lot of information on, or there was just a lot of muddled information about the virus. And so, the 6 feet apart, you're in this room with no windows with 12 other dudes
all rolling around,
sweating. And it's well, man, I hope we don't get COVID.
At that point, that's all you can do. Right?
Yeah. Just there were I know, and I know my sister was very affected by the possibilities
of course,
and we lived together, and it's just no, there was a couple of people there. No, we were like 10 feet, we were 20 feet away. No,
we're outside the whole time.
They're 3 feet away from us. I'm on a fixed 50 millimeter lens.
It's good as long as you don't cough,
Right.
Wow. Right. It's kind of interesting. It sounds like the filming process and the training process were kind of similar in a way of we just want to get in the gym and just and get some work done.
Yeah. And then just to get back to the idea of what would this possibly be, There was no intent for it to be a feature. It was just, hey, let's just get something. Maybe we put something together, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You see, we worked the festival circuit, but it was just to get out, just to stretch the legs, because
of course.
if you're not like actively working on your stuff. When you get back to the editing station, he's like, "How do I use this thing again?"
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Or like,
It's like that weird muscle memory.
Yeah.
Thing. Like,
you go to your camera. And it's like, "Where's the on button?" How do I use this thing? Damn, I suck.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
it's funny because like what was it with the documentary? I find it interesting. You are an athlete telling the athlete's story, and I was wondering like how being somebody who's playing football for much of your life, like how did that like tie into like are there connections between football and jiu-jitsu?
I think
Question.
I think one of my favorite things about growing up was watching Inside the NFL
Yeah.
every Thursday.
Yep.
Because huge football fan, obviously, but or like watching the HBO
Hard Knocks. I was just.
Hard
Yep.
Knocks, but like the HBO sports documentaries. Like one of my favorite ones is Magic versus Bird.
Yeah, that's a great one. Or the 30 for 30s.
The 30 for
Fab
30s,
Five.
like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that, intrinsically people have a misunderstanding about athletes,
Yeah.
right? And so, I've been in places where you have an outsider coming in with this kind of spectator knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, they're not using the right vernacular. They're not using the right wording to question,
Right.
whatever. And it's just like it becomes kind of fluffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing what athletes go through on every level, it's all about you and what you bring to it.
Yeah.
Right. And then allow the results to be what they are, but you got to work hard and you got it. So especially for me that I didn't really know much about jiu-jitsu, even though like I've seen Mike compete over the years, that like I don't know the ins and outs. So I want to know what he knows.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, I know that there's a preparation process, right? And it's kind of allowing him to walk me through the process and being able to, ask things in a certain way that is more informational for people that don't understand the medium.
Right.
100%. Yeah, you're able to get to those questions and answers easier than somebody else would. Yeah.
Because, and then the other thing is, it's like, there's certain things that are happening, like techniques that it's just like, okay, this reminds me of.
Right. Yes. Yeah, there's
Right.
crossovers, similarities,
Yes.
100%. Yeah. I think just to go back to the gym really quick, something that popped out to me when I was watching was the idea of the gym as a kind of third place. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept. Just like instead of home and work, you have another place to go and have a community. That was something that jumped out a lot to me. I don't know if you want to speak on that a bit.
No, I think especially in a situation where you're focusing on two guys all the time, right? And it was, the people that were there, they were kind of like in and out, they weren't there all the time. And so one of the things that I was really focusing on in the editing process was the siren that goes off after each round that they do, that big beep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and I was like really subconsciously kind of like focusing in and then allowing, because there's not a lot of B-roll outside of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I want you to feel like you're inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I want you to feel like you smell the sweat. Right.
Absolutely.
Because it's, and then, the different ways that that it's presented, that it becomes a character.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's just, you come in, it's just four walls and a room full of mats.
Yeah.
And then you see you see the backstory of how it got started.
Yeah.
Right. You see the different, like at the end when you see them opening up and teaching classes, or when they're talking about, their dream to open up a school.
Yeah.
Right. You see like a different cast of people coming in.
Right.
Right. But the place stays the same. So, and I really, and again, just having two guys, and I know that it could be a little bit like daunting on the audience to like just focus on two people for 79 minutes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you gotta
Have
bring
a
something
foundation,
in. You gotta make
Right.
them feel like that they're there.
You got to build the community
Right.
through what you present.
Right.
And it's funny, how you'd mentioned editing and also sound, how that plays into it. And I just wonder if you could elaborate further on like visual presentation, because it's interesting. Like there's the stories you capture, and then there's like how you capture it, and sometimes this may not work, but you can make this work. And I was just wondering, like visually, like how do you shoot it? What was your approach? What were you thinking?
So since we didn't really know, like, we really didn't know what we were filming, right?
Yeah.
Because
Working for it. Yeah.
and
working towards.
jujitsu was so different from other martial arts, right? Because it's grappling, it's submission. They spend all the time on the mat. Where it's like, how is this evolving? How is this like kind of leading to the next thing?
Yeah.
And so for the first couple of weeks, Izzy's like, so what's the story?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have no idea.
Haven't gotten there yet.
I have no clue. And even after we were done finished, it's like, I still don't know. I still don't know what the story is.
Wow.
But when it got to the editing process, I figured that maybe it'd be a good idea to kind of start the film the way that a training session goes about, where it's like, like kind of half speed, kind of warm up, rolling, and then all the way at the end, it becomes super intense, right? Like the last 20 minutes of class,
Right.
because
Right.
when usually they train a technique and you work on the technique for a good portion of the class, or a couple of techniques before, like
And then you use them.
and then you use them, right? And people just like trade off, and then the last 20 minutes of the class, it's all out roll. It's an
Yeah.
all out roll. So it was okay. So maybe if I just take a training session and then kind of like spread it out throughout the process. Right. So then it's like, okay, so because then you see, the intensity just like ramp up little by little by little by little. And then the last scene that you see Mike in Legends before, they break, you see him rolling off and he's just exhausted, right? He's breathing heavily. He looks like he's about to die.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is cool. I think that made sense.
Yeah.
And then from there, trying to like break up, kind of, and then again, it's also like, when you're at practice or something, you warm up to the big thing, or but then you have breaks in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So,
And that's the little interstitials of him and Adam talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
that's
awesome.
Mike's backstory about how he got into jiu-jitsu, Adam talking about how he got into jiu-jitsu, and them talking about how they got in. They opened up
together.
Legends.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's really awesome. That's really interesting to hear that perspective. And now that you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, I do see that. And even we don't even see him really cutting weight until the end. You
Right.
see him running and rolling and all this stuff at the very end.
And that's kind of my fault, because I thought I told him that, like, every night, no, not every night, maybe like once a week, when you're home, you step on the scale, you just do a video of it, so then you can send it back to me. Because, and again, you had blinders on when we were in there, we shot and then we went straight home.
Yeah.
Because, what was going on with the
Yeah, you're not
pandemic.
gonna hang out and have.
So then it's like,
yeah.
you know, we're at week 6, right? And I'm like, I'm shooting the scale, and I'm like, I didn't do this shit this entire fucking time. I'm like, oh man, like, oh you dummy, what is? Oh God.
Thank you so much for listening to Uptown Films podcast. Please rate and review our podcast on Spotify. Make sure to follow us on social media, Uptown Films _pod on Instagram. We're going to have a TikTok page soon. And we also have a YouTube channel, which you can follow, Uptown Films. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. We are going to be uploading new episodes and clips each week. New episodes drop on Fridays, and there are clips throughout the week. Thank you.
I think that kind of leads into a question I have. Like, was there anything you learned while you were filming? Was there any difficulties that you've noticed since filming post-pandemic that have become a lot easier? Anything like that, if you could speak on that.
It's just, you know, do the work when you need to do the work. And because after we shot, you know, I just had this, you know, big aversion to edit, right? And it took me like 4 years to, you know, get this thing done. And then, you know, I spoke to a bunch of other people, see if they could help me out, and I just didn't want to do it, right?
I feel you.
Because you know,
Yeah.
you know, you shoot something and then you edit it yourself. You know the process, right? You're just
Yeah.
like, this sucks.
Right.
Editing sucks.
Like, oh God, why did I do this?
Everyone agrees. Yeah.
I should have went to law school or some shit, right? Like, you know, I should have became a teacher or something. What am I doing? I think it's more of that kind of building the self-confidence that one, you just do it, you know,
Yeah.
do the
Yeah.
work. Just
Stop thinking about it.
stop. Yeah. You know, and the other thing is, it's like, there's not a lot of opportunities out there for you because, you know, everybody has a phone, a camera in their pocket. Everybody wants to be Martin Scorsese now. Right.
Yeah.
And so like and I think this is something that I got from, well, I know that I got from City College, that, you know, in most film programs, you go in as a director, you go in as a cinematographer,
Right.
right? And they teach you everything at City College, right? You teach you how to edit, they teach you how to produce, they teach you how to direct, and all those things, right?
Yeah.
Because the state of the industry is that if you're looking to work in the industry, you have to know how to do something. You just can't, you know, roll up on set and be like, well, I'm going to be a camera assistant.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No. I mean, if there's a space there and you know a little bit of something about it, then you can get in and at least you get a job.
Right.
And it's, you know, being able to like be okay with what you know at the time and try to like learn the things that you need to learn in order to get the job done.
Yeah.
Because yeah, man, it was just me. It was Izzy and I doing this work, and then Izzy would get pulled off and do his own work and stuff. And it's like I'm sitting there, and here's the footage, and here's here's Premiere Pro,
Right.
Yeah.
any day now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the thing that's just, you know, being able to just work through your own self-conscience, right? Work through, you know, what you think about yourself,
Right.
and how good you think you need to be as opposed to how good you really are, and just try to get better through the process.
Right.
You know, and then the other thing too, it's like, oh, we don't have this or we don't have that, and it was like, well, what can I do with what I have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to tell, you know, a coherent story. Never mind whether or not it's good. You know,
It's like if you can.
it's like, can you
tell
understand
a story?
this?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment in itself.
yeah. Hey, look, you know, tell that to me 3 years ago.
It's funny. It's you know, it sounds like your mindset as an athlete, I'm sure, helped in that. It sounds very similar to training and preparing in an off season where it's, you know, you're just putting in the work. It's not necessarily about what comes from it. You're just trying to get this done, what's in front of you, so you can move on to the next task.
Right. You know, and that's, you know, it's also like learning from sports that you can have a great game,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know,
Couple shitty ones.
bro, like a couple. You have a whole
Go on,
month,
yeah.
a whole
Go on a
month
run.
of bad,
Yep.
you know, bad football or bad races or bad baseball, bad at bats. And one thing that, so Mount St. Michael was actually at the time, I mean, they're coming back. They're coming back. You know, we coming for you, Hayes. We coming for you, baby. You know what? Like at the time, you know, Mount St. Michael was a powerhouse in the city when I was there, and I always say that my favorite 3 teams that I've ever been a part of is my senior year football team, all of my track teams at Mount, and the third one is my college football team the last year that I played. And it's very stark because one, the first team, we were down a lot of guys didn't show up, right? We had 39 guys on the team and 12 of them were sophomores.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you know, and like eight guys had to go both ways, and I
Wow.
and then I was the best cornerback on the team, but I was also the quarterback, so I couldn't play defense. They
Yeah.
only brought me in during goal line, and so we ultimately went all the way to the semifinals with that team, and we got robbed. The refs. Like if Mike Davila was here, he'll say the same thing. You know, we talk about this like almost annually. Like, yo, we got robbed, bro. But you know, it's like, you know, a team that was, you know, we weren't the biggest team, but we could outrun you, right? And we got all the way to, and then there's in the first round of the playoffs, we were playing Fordham Prep, and Fordham Prep went up 20-7. Wow. And we're going into the fourth quarter, and we came back and won 21-20.
Wow. That's awesome.
You know,
Wow.
and it's like, you know, and it's like,
awesome.
you know, the big mighty Mount, look at you now, and we had to scrap for all those wins, and then, you know, for the track team, it was like the track team wasn't really quite respected at the time.
No.
Even though, you know, we're coming second and third place at city championships. We've got people qualifying for states and nationals. We were a very, very good team, but it felt like it was us against everybody else. You know, and then Mercyhurst, we went 4-5 that year. But the previous 2 years, we won one game.
Wow.
And we were getting destroyed. But like, and the example of all 3 is that we all came together when we had to, right? And one of the things is like, when you had like a good game, you know, and you're feeling like, oh man, I'm the man and stuff like that. And then you watch game tape and coach is just cutting you up, right? You see this, you did this wrong. You see that?
Yeah.
Like,
Missed
you
your
know,
coverage here. Yeah.
But then at Mercyhurst, you know, when and granted, we were in one of the best conferences in Division II.
Oh, okay.
You know, like the somebody from our conference would either win the national championship or represent in the national championship. So we're getting beat by them, but still, like, it's cold up there, and it's like you're getting blown out by 35 points, and
Doesn't
it's only
feel
the
good.
third. It's like this. What am I doing here? But you know, and the expectation is, you know, you go into film, you know, you go to film study the next day after the game, that like, you know, coach is going to be like pissed off and whatever, but like the coaches would just focus on the things you did right. He's like, you know, the technique, you see, this is exactly what you got to repeat this. And it's like, And then like it's just getting because you got to get these people to come back to practice because we got another game, right? Because it's so demoralizing when you lose a lot, but then it's just like no, you can learn something from here.
Yeah.
You can learn from losing, so you're always in it, right? And that's one thing I definitely brought to the filmmaking aspect is that you're never out of it.
Nice.
And then, it could be a feature or a 5-minute something on YouTube, but get it done and move on.
Yeah.
Move to the next thing and always try to stretch your legs. Stay active.
It's funny, just like how like you took what you learned from football and applied it to film. Because I'm always like thinking about, how do I conquer like a whole screenplay? And it's like, I guess the best way to think about it is like just like moving at it like piecemeal, and it's funny like that was the that's what you see in it. It's like okay, like get this done, then maybe something else could come from it. I mentioned this before. I'd always like I had trouble writing during COVID, which is like so ironic, but I would. Sometimes like creatively just like, oh, let me write this short because that's a funny idea. And then like if I can expand upon it into a feature, that helps. Like what, in terms of filmmaking, who were like some like influences of yours or like documentary or narrative or? I know it's
narrative, I'm going to be that guy, I love Christopher Nolan. Right?
Nolan.
I love Nolan, Guy Ritchie.
Oh, I love Guy Ritchie.
We were
hell yeah.
Greg and I were talking about Guy Ritchie this morning. Me and Greg's father. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I love Guy Ritchie because the way he writes.
Yes.
And then his style is just so different. And then and also a narrative as well is Jim Jarmusch.
Oh, I love
Very
Jim
cool.
Jarmusch.
Wow.
I love Jim Jarmusch because his style is so antithetical to the film process. Like there's a story about how when he was at NYU that his thesis project was given back to him and was like, there's no action in this, right? And he went back and took the rest of the action out of it.
I heard him say he'd rather make a movie about a guy and his dog than like something plot driven.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
and
That is
and knowing and from like from him especially that your film is what it is. It's being able to feel it out as opposed to okay, this is exactly what I'm going to get. And juxtaposed to a guy like Christopher Nolan that has this vision.
I mean, it's like mathematical.
I was just gonna say like an equation for his films.
And then documentary wise, actually, I was like very, very, very shocked that I got drawn to him as a Christopher Marker.
Oh.
And I think my favorite documentary, Sans Soleil.
Oh,
I think, Gordon, didn't you just mention this on the podcast?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, we were talking about like favorite documentaries, and I mentioned Sans Soleil from Chris Marker and High School from Frederick Wiseman. Yeah. Right. Sans Soleil is beautiful.
Oh my God! I remember the first time we screened it in class, 2012. When it just opened up, I was just like watching. I was like, "This is what I want to do." Wow. He's like, "This is whatever this is. I want to do that."
So that's the film that activated that for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then but also it was just an example of my understanding about documentaries where, historical or whatever, and it's just like this is beat by beat, and then it's happened, and then it's happened, and this happened.
Kind of Ken Burns-esque.
Yeah.
Right. And even then, I mean, like even, in that style, at least, like Ken is trying to put you in that time.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like I love his film so much.
I love Ken Burns.
But this one is like, it's just, like 90 minutes or so. Is it 90 minutes or something like that? It feels like it's 3 hours long. It really does. But, it's like, you enter this sort of meditative state. Right, and you kind of drift off, and you're watching, and you're not listening to the narrator, and then you're like hyper focused on the narrator, and you're not watching.
Yeah.
And then they just come together. When you hand your windshield wipers on, and it kind of like goes to the beat, and then it goes off, and then it's like, and then it's all like it's like offbeat, and then it's like and then it comes back. That's that movie. That's that film, and it's like. Man,
I love that.
And it's like, I don't know how many times I've watched it and I still don't get everything.
Which movie?
Sans Soleil.
Sans Soleil. That's, oh man. Yeah, that's the way you described that's perfect. Because it's like, it is all about like that like weird like nebulous space between like memories and like actual like waking life. Like it's beautiful film.
Sounds like that and Jim Jarmusch were influences for Thrilla.
And again, it was like following, and I went into film school wanting to be a screenwriter because I wanted to focus my writing, and then they were going to waitlist me, but then they told me that there was an opening in the doc, and I didn't want to wait a year.
Oh, wow.
Now, granted, if I'd have waited 2 weeks, I'd have got it.
Somebody dropped
So
that,
it's like, like documentaries, the complete opposite of screenwriting,
Yeah.
And it's like you have to find, and then being taught that you got to follow the story, and then the beautiful thing about it, it's like the story's never over,
Yeah.
So you don't have to think in a definitive sense of, or a completionist sense that like, whatever you have, whatever you feel is good about it, highlight it.
Yeah.
And
It's just like a sort of like day in the life or year in the life.
yeah,
kind of
because if I had any sort of idea about what Thriller would look like, I think I'd have spent more time on B-roll, just to get out of the space,
Right.
just to get out of the space a little bit more, in hindsight, like, oh no, we didn't do this, and then when everything started to open up, it like. Everything was just different, It would just it would look silly if I went out and try to get B-roll and people are in and out of the supermarket.
Right. You're capturing this moment.
Yeah, and that was the one thing too that like, being able to keep them in the present for the film as opposed to like. Sitting them down after all the stuff happened, and then they're saying everything in retrospect,
right?
Like because what that does is it changes their perception of what they were going through at the time because they knew what happened,
For sure.
Yeah,
right. And there was one of the things I was very like hyper focused on about keeping them in the moment, forcing myself not to get like. Obviously, after it was all done, I needed to talk to them to kind of sort of get an idea of what the visuals would look like in El Paso because we didn't interview them. And then, Mike looks like he's about to go to the emergency room, and then he's like, oh, Mike, how do you feel about blah, 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 right? He was like, yo, get out of my face, bro. I gotta cut 5 more pounds. Leave me alone. Or, when he finds out that he's overweight, on their scale, it's like, oh, Mike, how do you feel? That's a great time to ask him how he feels.
I know. When he asked, like, so what's up? What'd they say? I was like, oh shit. Like,
and so it's like allowing those things to play out, and it's like, earmark them and then come back and ask them like, okay, so what were you feeling here? What was going on here? What was going on here? And it's like, no, I don't want you to talk in past tense.
Yeah.
Right? Like this, because even though you have to in a sense, but it was more of like, okay, how am I going to visually show this?
Right.
Without, because then it's all present.
Right.
Like,
it's immediate. It's
yeah.
In terms of like distribution, what's the path to it, and like where can it be found? Like, or like upon like release, where can it be found?
So it was shown at it won an award of recognition at Indie Fest in August.
Nice.
And then it premiered at the International Puerto Rican Heritage Film Festival in November.
Yeah.
And what's funny about the distribution aspect of this is that since it's already done, they have to go back and do the pitch deck.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, usually, it's like, hey, look, here's the pitch.
Right.
This is how much money I want.
We're going to do it
Right.
after this. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, shit. Okay, so it's done.
How do we pitch this?
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're totally right. Yeah.
But there's a couple of people that I've been speaking to that are interested in doing something with it, right?
Nice.
I was thinking about like doing more of the film festival thing, but you know how like you could be in, Joe's Barbecue International Film Festival, and it's
Right.
like you try to enter it into another international film festival. Well, it's not an international premiere anymore, so we're not gonna like.
Right.
Can you just not do that this time, please?
Quit with these canned rules.
yeah, right. Like, but yeah, I'm in discussion with a couple of people about possibly like packaging something to send to a distribution company, but then also Eddie Bravo still hasn't seen it yet.
I was going to ask if you had spoken to the UFC or Eddie Bravo's production company.
And that's the other thing, because since there's UFC Fight Pass footage in there,
Right.
they
That would have to clear.
Yeah, they would have to clear. But it's like they asked, like, as soon as you got a distribution deal, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? But then it's like, there's always YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You ain't gonna get paid, but I mean, it'll take a good goddamn long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we're like in the early stages of that, whereas a couple of other screenings that I'm going to be doing.
Nice.
And being able to talk to people that are, levels above me
Right.
and ahead of me to, get more advice about what we're going to do with it. But we're looking to do something before the end of the year.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have any dates set, or they're still working?
We're going to be, so we're just, it's working backwards, basically. So, and, so everybody's kind of sort of new at this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so what would you do? Like, you already have a finished product. Maybe there's another edit in there. Maybe there's like, you can shave some stuff off here and there. But yeah, it's like, okay, so now we just got to see who would be interested, or I know somebody who's interested, or.
It's like the playoffs.
Yeah.
You did all this work.
Yeah.
And now is where almost the real work begins,
Yeah,
where you're
right.
trying to get that money.
And trust me, I prefer to be on the field, not calling plays.
Oh, man.
Listen, man, it's whenever it does debut, I'm excited to see people check it out.
Yeah.
And tell people to check it out. And it's been great. It's been great talking to you, man.
Hey, man, this is a lot of fun, man. I appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming by. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.